Thank you. Tom Corser, class 83. Dig 'em. So, yeah, I'm not from Texas, but I married Texas. I lived here, obviously went to undergraduate here, came down from Minnesota, and I come from a very large family, as I told Clayton and the group around our lunch. And my parents had kind of run out of money by the time they got to me. I'm right in the middle of 8 kids. And so they had moved to Dallas, Texas, and so I came down here to become residency, living with them. And found out that there's 2 good engineering schools in Texas, Texas and A&M. And I got into both of them, but I chose A&M. And I'm going to tell you a story that answers Clayton's question. Why does a mechanical engineer worry or get into, in his last years of a career, into trees? Well, I came down, like I said, I didn't have much money. My parents were kind of tapped out. So I had spent some time out west and saw a lot of log cabins out in the west, in Idaho and Montana. And I was very enamored by them. And I thought they were really hardy, fundamental construction. So I came down to Texas and thought, where am I going to live? How am I going to pay for a place? And so I thought, well, why don't I just build a log cabin at A&M? A&M's an agricultural school. They must relate to that, right? So I sent a letter out to all the realtors in San Antonio and said, hey, you know anybody who's in fallow land and logs? I'll build a cabin, live in it while I go to school, cabin's theirs. A veterinary professor on campus called me up and said, hey, I'm ready to go. So I built this log cabin, lived in it without electricity, without running water for 4 years. And so, unlike most of you, where you have all these great memories of campus and parties and all that activity on campus, my undergraduate, from that perspective, sucked. Because I spent all my time living in the woods, trying to, eke out life. But it was really important because I grew up during that time. And A&M was a great foundation of culture there to help me with that. So I'm very, very appreciative of my time at A&M and all that tradition, all that culture that was built at A&M. So that's the answer to your question about how I got into trees. So I built this cabin and really adore trees. I'm a Boy Scout and love the camp and all those things. But I went into mechanical engineering and was in technology my whole career, so I never really dabbled in it, but I also married into San Antonio. I married Tina, my wife, who is the sister of Henry Cisneros. And so on a walk in Elmendorf Lake one day, when I first moved back to Texas in 2017, he said, Tom, I got this idea of an arboretum. And I was contemplating retirement from a company out in California called Juniper Networks. And he said, boy, it'd be really great if you could help lift this off the ground. I said, yeah, sure, I'll see what I can do. I didn't know anything about arboretums or nonprofits and all that. So step by step, I got into it a little bit more. And pretty soon, I was the only person doing anything. I don't know whether it says sucker up here still, but that was a big reason I got into it. And Henry is our founder, right? And he's the guy who lifted this idea. Uh-oh. There we go. Got to press the right direction. He founded us back in 2021. And he wrote articles and actually pitched this to the county. They allocated a great deal of money, $7.3 million out in 2030 for the Arboretum to create infrastructure. And we formed a board of directors. We did the classic nonprofit thing where we pulled together a board of advisors, got our 501c3 designation, and then we went out searching for a place, land. And we really wanted to put it on the south side, consistent with his vision of having a respite of nature on the south side that was really, truly differentiated. And thanks to Henry, we've realized these milestones as we've gone along. But we found 6 opportunities for land and chose the Republic Golf Club. It was for sale. It was a very fortuitous thing. I'll tell you more about the site and its features. But then we got funding from the city of San Antonio out of their budget. We got the county budget. Money was brought in from 2030 to 2023. We purchased the land using, in part, some of those county monies. Brooks also purchased $1 million worth of land for us. Great partnership with Brooks, just a mile to our west, sorry. And a lot of great other partnerships there. Once we had the land, we went into an RFP process for master planning. And master planning is that process in which you say, I've got a big plot of land that's grown a bunch of weeds and invasive species, but has good bones. What am I going to do with it? When am I going to do with it? How much is it going to cost? So answering all those questions. So we launched into that process. And we're right in the middle of that now. A person who has just joined our group, TJ Pinellas is here, and a fellow Aggie, who is helping us manage that master planning process. And he's got a lot of expertise in construction and construction management, and he's engaged in the planning process, and then hopefully will be there for that design and development process. So my big pitch to you today is to go through this organization and tell you about who we are, but more importantly, tell you about where we are in this master planning process and tell you what kind of ideas we have. I would like each and every one of you to participate in that ideation of what you'd like to see at this Arboretum. Even if you don't know anything about trees, certainly I'm learning, but I don't know everything about trees, but everybody can participate, and it's very important that you engage in that. Probably tough to see all the names on there. I apologize, but we've got a board and a board of advisors that is truly what brought us to where we are today. Between Evangelina Flores, who's our chair, to Henry, our founder, Leo Gomez is our vice chair. He's the CEO of Brooks. Therefore, that great partnership that we have with Brooks. Suzanne Scott is a 15-year veteran of the San Antonio River Authority and is now with the Texas Nature Conservancy. But a great deal of depth and wealth of knowledge about nature and how to put together big things like an arboretum would be. Likewise, we have a board of advisors who bring depth in engineering and arborists. Sarah, CPS, and SAWS have representatives on our advisory board. We have professors from Trinity and Texas A&M San Antonio. So a great deal of wealth to surround me, an engineer, with that information necessary to put together an arboretum. Without both the board and our advisors, we wouldn't be nearly as far along as we are. Again, located in the southeast part of town, just east of Brooks City Base, the old Republic Golf Club. Very good access right off of Southeast Military and 37, about a mile off of that junction. And it really is made for an arboretum. It's got water, a recycled water contract that the golf course has, 300 acre feet. Meaning we could put about 19 inches of water every year on that land and not impact the Edwards aquifer. So it's a great sustainability story, but we're not going to do that. We're not going to make it that green where it's a bad example for San Antonio. We've got to make sure we're a good example for San Antonio in the appropriate use of water. But we have that resource there for us. It has bike trail paths right away for the Howard Peak Greenway necklace that goes around the city. We're going to be a section of that, and so we're busy right now planning exactly where that's going to go, but we've got right away going through that property. We've got about 4 miles of concrete cart paths that the golf course uses, so it's a great head start from a hiking perspective. Most importantly, we have trees. A lot of trees. We have heritage trees. We have a wide variety of species. There's a organization in just outside of Chicago that Morton Arboretum that has a division called ArbNet. ArbNet is a clearinghouse of arboreta distinction, right? To level 1, level 2, level 3, level 4. Level 4 being the highest, most broad, most majestic arboretum. We are applying right now for a level 1 arboretum because of those species, because of our organization, and where we are in this process. So that's another milestone of progress that we have. But those that landscape that we have there really is fit for an arboretum. It's a great head start for us. As I mentioned, now that we have the land, 188 acres, we got to figure out what we're going to do with it. And so we brought together through an RFP process, and found a firm called Sasaki. Sasaki is a nationally world-renowned firm that has done botanical gardens and arboretums in the past and bring a great deal of wealth of knowledge and expertise to the table. But we were very ardent about making sure that it's not just architects from Sasaki, landscape architects and environmentalists from Sasaki who aren't from San Antonio. Those people that are standing there are how people think, how people speak in San Antonio. So it's very much a San Antonio organization. But the reason we're so ardent about that is we wanted to make sure we didn't hire Sasaki from Denver and bring in a Denver Arboretum in San Antonio. We wanted to make sure we have Arboretum San Antonio was named very specifically to represent San Antonio. So culturally, environmentally, tree species wise, it's got to be Arboretum San Antonio. Very, very important. We're a little bit more than halfway through that process. We pride ourselves in the fact that we've got a lot of community engagement. We've got community events, we've got surveys. We're in our second generation of survey that I'm going to ask you to try to fill out. We've just had a public event on the 22nd of October that was very well attended, where we presented our 3 plans. And we have focus groups that have met to give us very subject matter expertise that come in and tell us what they think we should do and how we should do it. One of the unique things about our master planning process is we have 3 deliverables that we've asked Sasaki to deliver to us. One is a strategic plan. Who are we? Why are we? What is our purpose? Mission, vision, values, things like that. Second is a site plan, classic. What we're going to do with the land, what features it's going to have, how much it's going to cost, and so forth. And third is, I think one of the more important ones, is the operating plan. Right now, we don't have an arboretum. We don't have that organization. We don't have that business model of how we're going to bring in revenue to sustain it. That's so critical. I think that's one of our largest challenges, is what's the business model for this arboretum, right? We are a nonprofit. But boy, we got to make money, right? We can't rely on the great philanthropists out there. We can't rely on the government to fund this operationally, right? We got to bring in our own earned income. And coming from the business world, that's very important to me. So that is a critical deliverable for this master plan, is that business model, is that operating plan about how we're going to function this arboretum. By the way, I'm tearing through these slides such that we can get to questions. But if you have questions as I go along, please voice up. Let me know, okay? Again, hard to read most likely, but we do have a vision, mission, and a set of values. But bottom line is we're really trying to focus on that. A lot of people say, what is an arboretum? And I explain it as a spectrum. That on one end of the spectrum is a botanical garden. Many of you have probably been to the San Antonio Botanical Garden. It's a phenomenal place. It's a great place. They've done a fantastic job. But it is that manicured, sculpted garden that you walk through, right? And again, it's fantastic for its experience, its purpose, and they've done a great job. But then there's this spectrum of the other end of the spectrum, which is, in its end state, is a walk in the woods, where it's all about focused on trees and nature and the way our forefathers saw the land, right? Where will end up in that spectrum. We'll probably come closer to the center, but we're not going to go over towards the botanical garden because we have one and a great one, and we're not looking to compete with a botanical garden. We want to create an arboretum, which is that walk in the woods, which provides that solace, that place to bathe in nature, or to go just walk and have that solace, to have a retreat in nature, to have where people can go and educate about the trees, the flora, the fauna of our area, and understand what they could possibly grow in our yard. One of our fundamental values is to make sure that we are that subject matter, we're that place people can go to learn about nature, to learn about trees, such that those trees can be in people's backyard. We had a guy from A&M come visit us for the focus group that we had, and he said, the largest park in the world are people's backyard. And that's true when you think about it, right? And so if we can bring what trees can grow in your backyard, how to grow those trees, how to plant those trees, how to care for those trees to people's backyards, we've done a great service to San Antonio. We've done a great service to South Texas in terms of helping foster that canopy, foster plants and trees, and foster a little bit of history, right? Because we're all of age where we're all about putting our fingerprint on the earth, right? Our fingerprint of who we are. And 20, 40, 80, 100, 200 years from now, if we plant a tree today, our children's children can talk about us in the context of that tree that we planted, right? And there are many of those 150 to 200 years old trees out there on that property that we can talk about the history of San Antonio and what legacy that we have and what that tree has experienced from a little seedling all the way up to that 200-year heritage oak that we have. So, sorry, I'm nerding out on you here, but I think that's really, really important component of who we are. And again, we have values about nature, about community, about education, about that cultural description and stories that we can bring through our wandering through that walk in the woods. So where are we with respect to our master plan? We have 3 concepts of a master plan. 3 very different instances of what we could do on the property. I know this is an eye chart, and I'm not expecting you to study this and extract all the information. We have handouts that TJ's laid out there. We'd be glad to explain more about each one of those, but handouts that will describe in detail each one of these 3, about community crossroads, about how we can bring people together and create an environment, a place where people come together and learn and experience trees and so forth. We can talk about wild San Antonio, where we're more on this side of that spectrum, right? Where it is that natural walk in the woods, and we preserve that nature along the whole 188 acre property. And then there's the testing grounds, which is more about research and education and understanding what trees need to grow there, right? So each one of these 3 concepts, we're not going to do just one. And you don't vote for just one. What we're looking for is describe that community crossroads, describe that wild San Antonio and the testing grounds, and talk about those features that you like in each one. Bring those top features together to make our 4th instance of what Arboretum will be. So I think it's a great process of polling San Antonio, polling our focus groups, those subject matter experts that we brought together, polling our board of directors and advisors to opine on what do they think is best suited for Arboretum San Antonio to make that 4th concept. And that's what that survey is intended to do, is extract from you your thoughts, your ideas, your likes and dislikes, your proclivities about what you'd like to see at an Arboretum in that survey. So it's really important. So the community crossroads, again, is all about bringing the community of San Antonio together. And my favorite, in the sense of that's what an Arboretum should be. I've visited many Arboretums, and they focus on that. They focus on bringing people into that Arboretum. I told you one of the biggest challenges we have is the business model. The reason that's such a big challenge is Henry Cisneros was adamant about not charging people to get in. So it's going to be free to enter the Arboretum, right? Phenomenal decision, right? For a long time, plenty of times over kitchen tables, I debated with him that that's a bad idea. Because how are we going to survive? What's that business model going to look like? He convinced me that if we're going to make this successful, the key metric of any Arboretum is people coming through it. And if we charge people to come through, we're necking down the type of people that come in that can afford it, as well as the number of people. And so he's all about opening up that park, that experience to as many people as possible. And so we've got to figure that out. That's why that business model is so critical. The second challenge, I think, is safety. We've got to make sure it's safe. If we want people to come into there, in that side of town, which has its history, we've got to make it safe. So that's a big mission that the master planning team has to do, is tackle that safety issue. But community is very important, and bringing those folks together about how we can have that experience, how people can celebrate out there, how people can learn out there, and make that part of our life. The wild San Antonio is a really important one in the sense that it brings out that nature, that walk in the woods, and that learning about walking in the woods, and understanding what our forefathers saw when they discovered San Antonio, right? Why this oasis of land, the water, and the trees was so important is to help appreciate that. There's a place in, how am I doing on time, by the way? Am I okay?
10 minutes.
Okay, so I can go on. Okay. So there's a place out there where it's for those who played, it's the 18th tee of this golf course. And it's a vista that's raised up and has a broad view of this great, over the creek and woods on either side. It really is a beautiful sight. And there was this, what they call a snag, which is a dead tree that was standing. And it had all these vines growing on it. And I was up there saying, man, we got to bring out fundraisers out here and talk to funders about the beauty, the majesty of this. And I said, we got to take that down. And boy, those arborists came down on me like a sack of oats. They were so upset. They said, Tom, that's exactly what you don't want to do. Because we're over here at the Arboretum definition. It's got to be that lesson of that's an ecosystem. And that's an important part of our nature, right? Is that those birds, those bugs, those raccoons nest there, and they've got to live there. And that's how we foster this wild San Antonio. And that's really an important lesson for me. And so I sing that story every time I go up there because it was so important about the definition of this spectrum, right? And how Arboretum's over here at that walk in the woods and about that learning. And then the last one is the testing grounds. And this is an important one because there's no question that the amount of water that we get every year in San Antonio is decreasing. There's no question that it's getting warmer, right? And our trees on that property are suffering from it, right? Our trees in our yard are suffering from it. And a lot of environmentalists and arborists say, only native trees. Only native trees. And they draw a very hard line. And I try to open that up to say, let's be open to the possibility of species migration as we get hotter, as we get drier, understanding what are the right trees to plant for our kids' kids. Because that's so important that we don't make the mistake of planting a tree that's only going to die. We've got to make sure we plant the right kind of trees. So having that testing grounds, having that fundamental research about what we can do is so important. And again, the process is pick those features out of each of those, bring them together into one plan. That's what we're going to do next, based on your input. We've been talking with Texas A&M College Station. We've engaged TAMU San Antonio as well as Palo Alto College and partnering with them, but we're really trying to bring that fundamental research component from the Texas Forest Service and AgriLife Extension. And we've been talking with 2 professors there about a number of things, including that research of species migration, how we address making a green area with less and less water, how we partner with other schools locally, as well as how we can make this something that can represent South Texas and bring in trees from South Texas into San Antonio and be that representation. Very important that we have a scientific basis, and so that's why that testing grounds was in there. We've had great success with fundraising, and I'm very appreciative of the county money. The city of San Antonio, Brooks has bought $1 million worth of land that afforded us to buy the 188 acres. They bought 170. We bought $2 million worth of land that's out of the floodplain to make 188. There's another parcel of land that we're drooling over because it's just so perfect that Dan Pedrati, who owned it, wants to sell to us, and that's going to cost a chunk of money. But we've had good response from all those folks up there. I'm very appreciative of those. You know, one of the learnings that I've had is a nonprofit, as they start out, it has a tough life. Many of you are familiar with nonprofits, and it's that operating revenue, right? How to pay those first people, how to pay for the master planning, how to pay for maintaining 188 acres is a challenge. And so having that operating income to take you to the point where you have a plan that you can go out and have a capital campaign. I know a lot of you are familiar with capital campaigns as a result of this beautiful building that you have. But our fundraising is a critical component, not just the magnitude of what we have to raise, but the time at which we'll have to raise it up. But Arboretum takes many years to build out, and this will be phased out, and the timing of that will be a function of the money that we raise. So that's my talk.